I'm Reed Price. I'm the director of the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here today. We have as our guest today April Avey Trabucco. She is the executive director of Raising Resilience. Raising Resilience supports the Bainbridge Island community with parenting education, resources, connections to help families thrive. And like the senior center, it sounds like they sort of get a little bit off the island. We have members who are in Suquamish and Paulsbo, and it sounds like April works with some families and kids in those areas as well. Raising Resilience does this by bringing parents, grandparents, and educators together to learn both from experts and each other through a program they call Connections Cafe, Raising Resilience's virtual parent support program, and through speaker and documentary events. So April is going to start us off today to give us a little history of Raising Resilience, its vision, and peek into the future, the priority concerns and issues that are facing parents and youth on Bainbridge Island, and a few top tips from the Connection Cafe session. So thank you, April, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is a great group, and I'm really pleased to be here. And Reed, you're hired. That was a great introduction. So I am going to go ahead. I do have a PowerPoint that I am going to go ahead and share with you guys today. Let me get this going. Okay, so as Reed said, we are Bainbridge Island's parent support organization, and we are now working beyond Bainbridge Island as well throughout the Kitsap County. But we are we started on Bainbridge Island in 2003, so I can't believe we've been around for 18 years. 16 and a half of those years were as a volunteer organization run by some great powerhouse men and women who were very committed to parenting issues on the island. If you don't know, some of you may have been here at that time. We actually started as the Bainbridge Coalition for Youth and Parents. And just know we worked with Mama Llamas. So some of you may have been involved with the organization at that point 18 years ago. And it's just continued to grow throughout the years. We've gone from being a responsive organization to when crises happen in our community to being more of a preventative organization with a consistent presence. And so I was hired in 2019 as the organization's first executive director. This is a picture of me with my kiddos, and actually since COVID hit, my son has grown 3 inches and he is now taller than me. So, and my kids are actually both at the high school. My son's at Eagle Harbor. My daughter is a junior at Bainbridge High, and they are headed back today. So in a few minutes, they'll be out the door, and hopefully they'll be quiet as they do it. But I very much appreciated all of the programming that Raising Resilience put out under Cezanne Allen's direction, Tracy Pico Denlinger, all these women who went on to lead other organizations like Bainbridge Youth Services, One Call for All. These were all women that were part of Raising Resilience from the beginning. And I used to attend their workshops and panels and documentaries far before I even thought about being a part of the organization. I'm going to tell my story really quickly because it's at the heart of why I'm so passionate about what we do with Raising Resilience. My son actually fell out our second-story window 6 weeks after we moved to Bainbridge Island. He fell 12 feet out his sister's window and fractured his skull. He was airlifted to Harborview Medical Center and spent a week in the hospital. And we spent a year after that doing follow-up care at Children's Hospital. He is fine today, but that was a lot of touch and go and very scary at the beginning. You would not know it, but he has had some challenges that we've had to work through, and the resources that I was able to uncover and tap into, I could not have done this without that. So everybody has a story to tell. I'm sure that you all have a story to tell as well. And all of that built resilience in my family. It's part of our vernacular. So I would say coming into COVID, we were already kind of primed for it. We have a Parent Corner blog that we share with our community. We have doctors and therapists and teachers and mentors and coaches who all contribute pieces for that blog. And we had John Mooallem, who is a New York Times journalist and author who lives on the island. He did an interview for us, and one of his quotes that I love sharing is that alongside all the terribleness happening right now is an opportunity to build up our capacity to weather other disruptions in the future. And that is from his book, This is Chance, The Shaking of an All-American City, a voice that held it together. Some of you may be familiar with his work. His wife, Wandy Pryor, who is a psychologist at Front Street Clinic, is on our board, and she just did our last Connections Cafe session for us, which was Parenting Through Change, and I will share some of her insight with you in just a little bit. I wanted to share some data with you. This is why Bainbridge Island needs raising resilience. We use data from the city's needs assessment report, from the Healthy Youth Survey that the district puts out, and we do our own annual community survey as well to determine what the priority issues for our parenting community are. And the top issues that parents seem to want to focus on most are youth and family mental health, student motivation, technology and social media habits, and substance abuse prevention. And then added to that this year was sexual assault prevention. And we also, of course, address positive parenting, behavioral strategies, development. The middle school years are huge, but coming out of the surveys in the last 2 years, those were the top priorities that we were hearing from parents on Bainbridge Island. The Healthy Youth Survey concluded the last one that was done. There's actually about to be another one done, and that will be very interesting and very telling coming out of COVID. But this was the data that came from that last one. Growing rates of depression and suicidal ideation, even before COVID hit. Bainbridge Island culture feels like an achievement pressure cooker that threatens students' physical, social, emotional, and civic well-being. Quality of life indicators were decreasing, and parents lacked support. Many don't have extended family in the area and feel isolated in their efforts. And so that is some of the data that came out of that Healthy Youth Survey that the district does. And then the needs assessment report from the city showed that teen anxiety is more prevalent here on Bainbridge Island than throughout the rest of the county or state. So are rates of teen drinking, marijuana use, and binge drinking, where teen pregnancies may be higher in other cities. Substance abuse is more of an issue here. And the report also noted that some working parents were emotionally disconnected from their teens, and left them unsupervised or maybe turned a blind eye to some of the substance abuse. And that is very controversial to say. And it's been very interesting to see what has happened through COVID now that the parents are home and maybe aware of what's happening a little bit more. So how do we address all of this? What do? We bring speakers. In the past, just this past June, we brought the authors of The Self-Driven Child, Dr. Bill Stixrud and Ned Johnson, who are nationally acclaimed authors. We've had Dr. Delaney Rustin, who was the creator of Screenagers, and we have a working relationship with her. We brought her to the island 3 times. We brought the Dean of Freshmen at Stanford University, Julie Lithcott-Hames, Dr. Laura Kastner, who is the author of Wise-Minded Parenting and Getting to Calm, and Clay Roberts, who actually is on Bainbridge Island. So those are just a few of the speakers. We also brought Matt Bellis, who wrote A Natural High. He's a comedian and a therapist, and he addressed the students during the day during an assembly, and then we brought the parents for him to address at night. So we bridged that gap. And we really do exist to bridge the gap between what the kids are getting in school with the social emotional curriculum. We bring that to the parents, and then we address the parenting role and the grandparenting role. And we have a lot of educators attending our events as well. And then we have on our website a Parent Corner blog, as I mentioned before, parent support resource list, and a parent events calendar. And then this past March, we launched the Connections Cafe, which is something that we were anticipating doing in maybe a year or two, and that got fast-tracked, and we're so glad that it did. So post-COVID, when the world opens back up again, Connections Cafe is here to stay. That is a way for us to engage with parents who maybe have babysitting issues or scheduling issues and aren't able to attend all of our live events. We will continue to do our monthly Connections Cafe events. And those events, we have local guest speakers, doctors, therapists, teachers, educators come on to address all of these priority topics that I mentioned before. And we record all of those. We have a video library, so if parents aren't able or grandparents aren't able to tune in live, they can access those for free through our video library. And I would say there's so much great material this year. I actually gave a presentation to the Bainbridge Island Women's Club, and several of these sessions that we're doing, it's not just about kids and it's not just about parents, because it applies to all of us, really. It's coping with our stress and building resilience for any of us.
So, April, we're recording this, as you know, and so in the video, when I put it up, I will put a link to your Vimeo channel that has the Connections Cafe videos on it. And if you're a member of the Senior Center or we have your email, you'll also get that in the link that I send out after this chat.
Great. Thank you, Reed. I appreciate that. I wanted to share the results from our annual survey that we do. This was last year's. We're about to do another one in May, and it will be very interesting to see comparatively where those land now that we've been through the year that we've been through. We did the survey in August of last year, and at that time, 75% of our participants reported that their mental health and well-being had worsened due to COVID. I'm sure you've seen some similar results. The top 3 parenting concerns had changed a little bit. Academic motivation was number 1. That was huge because we were all dealing with remote learning. Balancing work schedules with distance learning and staying connected. I love that the Senior Center does such a fantastic job of keeping you guys connected, and parents of children at home need that as well. And we're finding that after elementary school, some of those organic opportunities for parents to connect through school, they start to drop off. There's no longer the play dates. There's no longer the encouragement for the parents to be participating at the schools, because the message is that we want our kids to be a little bit more autonomous. So at that point in middle school, we start to not know who the parents of our kids' friends are. We start to not have all of those opportunities to connect that we used to. So that is why part of our mission is parent education, resources, and connections to bring these parents together. So the top priority issues they wanted us to address were youth mental health, anxiety and stress are still prevalent, academic motivation, and then parent self-care actually popped up at the top for the first time this past year. Parents are realizing that old saying, you have to put on your oxygen mask before you can help others. Screen time is always and will always be a prevalent topic as well. And then the type of events participants are most likely to attend are featured speakers and documentaries, and we typically do 1 or 2 documentaries a year. We did Screenagers and Angst last year. This year we are doing Nevertheless, which addresses sexual assault. Obstacles, of course, overwhelming schedules, lack of awareness, which we're really trying hard to raise the awareness, which is part of the reason that I am talking to you guys today. And then we're also looking at doing smaller parent support groups, a support group for parents of kids who are dealing with substance abuse issues, a support group for parents of kids who have neurodiversity challenges, and maybe age appropriate. And that is just part of our growing our capacity to truly meet the needs in a deeper way in our community. So I have a couple of the graphics from our recent Connections Cafes up here. This year, we've addressed remote learning. We've done a family mental health checkup, substance abuse prevention, mindful parenting, screen time, parenting through change, This month, we're going to be doing sexual assault prevention. In April, we will be doing de-stressing and myth-busting the college application process. And then our final one for this program year in May will be executive functioning skills and behavioral strategies. And like I said, all of these, especially like the mindful parenting one and the parenting through change, those sessions have wonderful meditations and hands-on exercises that are really applicable for anyone, not just people who have kids at home. And these can also be used with your grandkids. Let me just, oops. Here we go. So I was going to just share a couple top takeaways. I don't want to take too long here. The Mindful Parenting Through Crisis with Jendi Watson, who is a wonderful Hakomi therapist. That is on our Vimeo channel that Reed said he would share. And she takes you through an amazing meditation and mindfulness practice. We're finding right now a lot of therapists are booked. It's hard to get in to sessions with individual practitioners. And so we always ask when we have a therapist on to do a hands-on exercise that parents can take away with them until they can get in and do a deeper dive. So we have several of those sessions that have exercises that are very helpful. And Jendi, what I loved was that she taught us how to be okay in uncertainty. And we're going to be dealing with that for a little while longer, even as things are opening back up. It's going to take us time. That's a domino effect, and we're going to be living with uncertainty for a while. And so her focus was really on how to be okay and how to be present living with that uncertainty. And she talked about structure and connection, movement, doing what you love. Boundaries were huge, things that I think you guys probably put into practice better than some of the younger parents that I'm dealing with at this point.
I feel like we all need to learn that over and over again, and and the uncertainties change as you age, and you know, not only are the uncertainties around COVID, but just what the rest of our lives are going to look like.
True.
And so you have to move forward even when you don't know that, which I guess you learned right off the bat after moving here with your son's accident. It was like,
yes,
I don't know how this story ends, but I know I'm in it.
Absolutely. Yes. My motto is day by day, year by year, kid by kid. And what works one year may not work the next year. You have to switch it up. And so flexibility is a big part of resilience. And I think every single therapist that we've had on to do a session with us addresses that flexibility piece. So there's just such value in that. We also had Betsy Lytle-Smith. I don't know if some of you know her. She's a Virtues Project facilitator. She came on.
Yes, she's a member of the Senior Center and has done some of those presentations here. But tell us.
She's fantastic. I love her. And so she talked to us about parenting with compassion. And she took us through a couple exercises as well. And she said, you know, in terms of that compassion piece, spending more time listening, not talking. Sometimes our children's or our partners don't need us to fix anything. They just need us to be heard with compassion and led to their inner wisdom. And I loved that. She took us through an exercise. You can find that video as well. Moderation, create healthy balance between work, rest, reflection, and play. You don't need to be all things to all people. Practicing healthy boundaries adds value. Boundaries is another thing that I will say. Flexibility and boundaries comes up over and over again. And then appreciation, recognize gifts that come our way and show gratitude, perceive positive intentions and honor them. Love thrives on appreciation. And then this last session that we had on parenting through change was led by the psychologist who was on our board, Wandy Pryor, and then Stephanie Dalton, who is a functional nutritionist and health coach. She's also on our board. And so those two fantastic ladies led this last session. And this is a quote from Wandy that I really loved. "We are not going through this pandemic to get back to normal. We're going through this pandemic to get to something new that can either be framed as a beautiful opportunity or it can be framed as something full of loss. Frame it the way you want your child to digest it." And I would also go one step further and say, frame it the way you need to digest it. Wandy talked about reintegration anxiety or reentry anxiety. And she pointed out, she said, what is this and who has it? She said, just assume you have it. She pointed out she has it. Even if we are okay with things opening back up, even if we're excited about things opening back up, we're all dealing with a level of coming out of this fearful place and holding that unknown and walking through a lot of anxiety around that. And she pointed out what the signs were, and she pointed out that this is a process, that we're going to see these signs over the next year. And so she gave us a heads up on what to look for with our kids and your grandkids, ourselves, so that we're aware when these triggers come up and maybe we don't know why we're feeling this way. Yes, okay, this is going to be a process. So I would also recommend maybe tuning into that session. I found it very helpful. My kids are headed back to the high school today, and I have mixed emotions about that, but I didn't even realize I had an anxiety dream last night and woke up this morning a little short of breath, like, okay, here we go. Even though I'm excited for them, I'm also very nervous. And so I'm sure we're all experiencing some level of that. And I'll just end with, this year we launched a movement called We Are Raising Resilience Together. And this was part of growing our organization, our capacity to dive deeper. We partner with the district and with the city and with the police department and with Bainbridge Youth Services. But we need to be healthy and sustainable as an organization as well. And coming out of that, being led by volunteers for 16 years to now trying to have some minimal staff operating on a very minuscule budget. We want to be here in 10, 20 years time so that parents in our area have those preventative programs that they need to help their families thrive. So we would just ask you to help spread the word. I'll spread the word about how fantastic and fun you guys are. Also, we need your perspective. We need your wisdom. We need your experience. And so if you want to not only tune in and participate in the sessions, but if any of you are all ever interested in joining us in a volunteer capacity and sharing your wisdom, we would love that. And you can always just email me at info@raisingresilience.org and check out our website. We have that great Parent Corner blog. We talk a lot about the building blocks of resilience as set forth by the American Psychological Association. And those are connection, self-discovery, positivity, self-care, acceptance, and perspective. So that is my presentation. Thank you for being.
Oh, it's fascinating. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I think that the kind of scientifically and authoritatively based information is so important for us to operate from. When you think about it, there's a lot of unknowns, especially with raising kids. The distances between the autonomous children who are not as autonomous as they might sometimes think, and their families, which is something that I think many of us come to appreciate only when we are adults ourselves and start to realize the importance of those connections. And so having real information to work from is key. I don't know whether anyone else here has a comment or question. Certainly just open up your microphone or raise your hand. Nancy, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Yep,
there you go.
Yep. So April, I'm curious, because connectivity is huge. What kind of input do you get from the kids that you use then to educate, their parents?
Yeah. So we work closely with the district and with Bainbridge Youth Services. I'm in regular connection with them, and they really address the kid piece of it. But to your point, that is something that we're looking, we had to kind of look in the sector at our capacity as organizations and who we're addressing, and then share information with each other. So while Bainbridge Youth Services exists to serve that 13 to 21 population, we exist to serve the parents, and we've had to be a little careful there's certain topics that we encourage parents to invite their kids to participate in with them, but there are certain topics that we just encourage the parents to be there for, so that they can be very candid in supporting each other and getting the tools and information that they need to then go back to their kids. But I would say that those biggest pieces of information from the kids are coming from Bainbridge Youth Services, from the district, and from our own kids. But we are looking at putting together a student council, a youth council, and I think Bainbridge Youth Services for a while was doing in the paper sort of a once a month article from a kid's perspective, and that is something that we're looking at partnering with them on. Courtney Oliver, who is the new director over at Bainbridge Youth Services, and we meet regularly, and there's going to be a lot more we're partnering together. This is a collective impact. It takes all of these organizations. Yes, it takes all of these organizations to do this in a really impactful way. And so I just met with Courtney last week, and we're going to be talking about how to be more intentional with bringing the kids into this process as well.
So if you were a kid at the high school, let's say, and you had, well, like this recent movement toward the sexual assault, that really has come into far more of the forefront these days.
Yeah.
So is that a path that they would take through your organization, or where how do they make that bloom? How do they?
Yeah. So actually, I just met with Courtney and with Peter Bain Knutson, and with the new curriculum director at the district, Jennifer Kinsella, so we sort of have a community response team going. There is an organization of girls who are working on putting together a nonprofit, Let's Talk. Yes. Right. And so I am aware of that, and I'm in tune. One of the girls who had sort of instigated that, Zoe Pellegrino, is going to be one of our guest speakers. And so we do occasionally have students who are guest speakers. Right. Over the summer, we did a Let's Talk About Race, where we invited 2 students from the Social Justice League to be part of that panel. And then in March, so this is going to be a 2-part event. This is such a huge topic, guys. And we have been asked in the past to address it. This was before I came on as executive director, and it hasn't been something that we've addressed in the past, but now we will be addressing it every year in one way or another. You know, we can't cover everything in a 1-hour session, but we're going to talk about as you know. But we have, so on this panel, we have Zoe, who is the high school advocate. We have Helen Burke from Bainbridge Youth Services, and we have Beverly De Los Santos from, I'm sorry, I'm getting her last name wrong. She's from Kitsap Sexual Assault Center. So those are the people that we have on this panel. We're going to do a discussion about how to normalize the conversation. Zoe and Helen are going to do a role play about how to have that conversation, how to support survivors. And then we're going to talk about consent. We're going to talk about the role social media plays in outing alleged aggressors, because that's been something that's been happening a lot. And we're going to talk about the proper streams for reporting. And there is a new mental health navigator with Bainbridge Police Department. Some of you may know that, Kelsey Lynch, and she's going to be brought into this as well. So we'll be talking. Okay. We'll be sharing all these resources, so that if there is an incident, you know how to talk to your child, you know how to support your child, you know how to report that instance. And then Bainbridge Youth Services is going to be making all of this available to the kids, because we know that, you know, over age 13, they can really take control of this themselves without their parents being involved. So we have to be aware of that as well. So it is a collective impact. And then we're showing a documentary, nevertheless. And that really is being provided as a tool for parents. We're saying, parents, sit down, watch this with your kids, and then here is how you have a conversation with them about that.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, and you record all that stuff so that other
We
people
do, yeah.
Yeah,
Occasionally, we'll, we couldn't record Delaney Reston, so occasionally, but
Right. There
I'd
might be
say
some
90
rules in some cases, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we will be recording this upcoming session and sharing it widely.
Super.
Kitsap Mental Health is going to be sharing it as well.